The scripture is from John 18. So the soldiers, their officers, and the Jewish police arrested Jesus and bound him. First they took him to Annas, who was the father-in-law of Caiaphas, the high priest that year. Caiaphas was the one who had advised the Jews that it was better to have one person die for the people. Simon Peter and another disciple followed Jesus. Since that disciple was known to the high priest, he went with Jesus into the courtyard of the high priest. But Peter was standing outside the gate. So the other disciple, who was also known to the high priest, went out, spoke to the woman who guarded the gate, and brought Peter in. The woman said to Peter, "You are not also one of this man's disciples, are you?" And Peter said, "I am not." Now the slaves and the police had made a charcoal fire because it was cold, and they were standing around it and warming themselves. Peter also was standing with them and warming himself. Then the high priest questioned Jesus about his disciples and about his teaching. Jesus answered, "I have spoken openly to the world. I have always taught in synagogues and in the temple where all the Jews come together. I have said nothing in secret. Why do you ask me? Ask those who heard what I said to them. They knew what I said." And when he had said this, one of the police standing nearby struck Jesus on the face, saying, "Is that how you answer the high priest?" Jesus answered, "If I have spoken wrongly, testify to the wrong. But if I have spoken rightly, why do you strike me?" And then Annas sent him bound to Caiaphas, the high priest. Now Simon Peter was standing by the fire and warming himself, and they asked him, "You are not also one of his disciples, are you?" He denied it and said, "I am not." One of the slaves of the high priest, a relative of the man whose ear Peter had cut off, asked, "Didn't I see you in the garden with him?" Again, Peter denied it, and at that moment the cock crowed.
Friends, pray with me. Oh God, may the words of my mouth and the meditations that are on all of our hearts be pleasing in your sight. Amen. So, hero stories. We love hero stories, right? They sell at the box office. The earliest tales of civilization, Achilles, Odysseus, great figures through skill and courage and ingenuity accomplish extraordinary challenges. We love those stories of that lone, brave figure standing against all odds who snatches victory from the jaws of defeat, right? David versus Goliath, or Rocky Balboa, John Wayne, Luke Skywalker. Occasionally Princess Leia gets the credit that she deserves in the story too, right? George Washington crossing the Delaware, standing up in a rowboat. How heroic is that? Nothing gets the blood flowing like a good, courageous hero story where there is pure evil on one side and pure good on the other. And we bring these narratives to our own situation. We think Volodymyr Zelensky versus Vladimir Putin, right? It fits the narrative. We know who the Goliath is. We know who David is with his slingshot taking out Russian tanks, right? It's such a compelling narrative. We want heroes so much that Have you noticed world leaders are changing their dress code? French President Emmanuel Macron was wearing a sweatshirt like Zelensky. I mean, you never see the guy out of a suit. You can't help but love someone who has so much courage to stand up for their people, for democracy, the hero we long for, someone who says, I don't need a ride, I need ammunition, right? I mean, our grandchildren are going to be learning that line in school. Zelensky's probably the hero we've been longing for coming out of COVID. Dealing with threats to democracy, watching Congress struggle to get anything important done. It feels like a much needed antidote. We hope that this will be a catalyst for world change, a hinge in history. Who could have imagined this? It's remarkable. It's almost a miracle. And that said, I already told you it'd be complicated, right? I'm already concerned about oversimplifying hero stories because it limits our options. You know, in true hero stories, the heroes don't always stand alone. And usually the hero has a weakness, a challenge that they have to overcome. Achilles had his heel, right? He wasn't completely indestructible. Luke Skywalker is always tempted by the dark side, that he could go over and join the other side. Tom Brady, well, I think there's more of this, deflating footballs. That's the tip of the iceberg, right? And who wants to make a movie about intricate negotiations for peace? All of the diplomats that are working out there to try to bring everybody in NATO and the EU and bring them all together to do all these complicated things. Nobody's probably going to know their names unless you're really nerdy and really want to know that, right? It's not a compelling hero story, even though it's so necessary. We'd rather see the TikTok videos of the exploding tanks, right? But now we face a very complex moral situation where winning a war may actually prolong great human suffering. And creating peace and limiting human suffering may mean making compromises that feel completely unjust. It's a complicated situation we're in. And so let's be careful about hero narratives. I'm a big basketball fan, and we have a phrase we say, oh, he's playing hero ball. Have you ever heard that phrase, hero ball? Okay, so I don't use many sports analogies, but bear with me on this. I'm a huge Celtics fan, right? And for the first half of the season, despite having two young superstars, they were terrible. And every game ended the same way. The score is close. The ball goes to Jason Tatum, their superstar, right? And he starts dribbling between his legs and behind his back, and three guys rush at him and forces him to shoot an off-balance shot. It clangs off the rim, and they lose again. I mean, you see it over and over again. It was so frustrating. That's hero ball, right? Trying to do it yourself, right? When you really need to involve your teammates. And so, is anyone a Celtics fan here? Okay, good. All right. So something changed, right? In about January, suddenly Tatum starts passing the ball. And everybody, it becomes contagious, and they become a team, and they work together, and they're like unstoppable. And it's not only exciting for me as a fan, but it fits my philosophy of life, right? Share the ball. That's my primary philosophy of life. This is why I like coaches more than superstars, right? Because you share the ball, you work together. It's the teamwork. And if heroes help us do that, that's great. But too often in the world, we see people out there playing hero ball. They're searching for glory, but they can lead us off a cliff. Now, what does that all have to do with Peter's denial of Jesus? I'm so glad you asked. So, There's also a typical story about this, an orthodoxy about it. And I want to give maybe a little alternative picture of it. But here's the orthodox story about Peter, right? It's Jesus last night. Peter is very prideful. Remember, he didn't want Jesus to wash his feet. He's having none of that. He vows that he's going to follow Jesus to the end. He will die defending Jesus. And he wants to be a hero. Well, push comes to shove. He's a coward. He denies Jesus 3 times. The cock crows. He's totally ashamed. And the moral of the story becomes, we must never deny Jesus, and we have to stay strong in our faith. Okay, that's a good story. But I think there's more to this story. Here's another way to look at it. And let's start with what's wrong in this narrative. So in the first lines, it says in John's gospel, Jesus is arrested. He was in the garden. He's arrested. Roman soldiers get him, and they take him to Annas, the father-in-law of Caiaphas, the high priest. Are you confused already? It's a little strange. There's 3 things that are very strange about this part of the story. First of all, why are they taking a prisoner to the father-in-law of the high priest? Does that sound weird to you? It is. So, Annas had been the high priest 20 years ago. He had 4 sons that became high priests, and Caiaphas, who's now the high priest, is his son-in-law. You get the picture? Nepotism, right? So we're being told right up front that there's all kinds of things going on behind the scenes, and there's corruption and protection of power and all this kind of stuff going on. And you're probably wondering, okay, so where does Caiaphas fit into the story, the high priest? Remember your Jesus Christ Superstar, right? Have you all seen Jesus Christ Superstar? The 5th gospel that came 2,000 years later? So Caiaphas, his signature song in Jesus Christ Superstar, he's the bass, that says, for the good of the nation, this Jesus must die. And then the chorus, must die, must die. Okay, that's Caiaphas. So we know who the bad guy is in the story, okay? So, second problem. Why are Roman soldiers taking a prisoner to a Jewish authority? That sounds weird. They don't report to Annas or Caiaphas. So there's like collusion going on here. That's not the way things work. And you know what the third thing is that's strange about this story? It's at night. There was no night court in Jerusalem. That means they're hiding it. This isn't about law and order. This isn't a just trial. Everything is wrong about it. It's, all of this is corrupt. So let's step into Peter's sandals. He knows all this, right? He sees what's going on. And imagine how you would be feeling if you were Peter. What's on your mind? What are you going to do? And let's remember where Peter is coming from. At his last night in John's gospel, they're all gathered together with Jesus, and he's giving his final words, after the foot washing that we talked about last week. And Jesus says, okay, this is the end. My time has come, and you can't follow where I'm going. And Peter says, whoa, whoa, whoa. Wait a minute, Jesus. Who said I can't go where you're going? I will never leave you. I will defend you. I will die for you. I will be the heroic Peter and save you, right? And so Jesus says, Peter, pump on the brakes a little here. In fact, you know what's going to happen? Before the cock crows in the morning, you are going to deny me 3 times. That's pretty rough. I mean, if you're Peter and you're hearing that, I'd be a little upset. And Peter now has to sit through 4 chapters of John's gospel while Jesus gives this very long and rambling sermon as his farewell to the disciples. And in this farewell address, Jesus is rolling out all of his greatest hits, right, in John's gospel. This is my commandment, that you love one another. I am the way, the truth, and the life. I am the vine. You are the branches. Abide in me, and I will abide in you. This is my prayer, that all my disciples may be one. Those are the greatest hits, right? And I'm wondering if Peter hears this sermon, or if he's sitting there brooding. I can't believe Jesus said this about me. Does he really think that I'm not faithful, that I'm not going to defend him? I can't believe it. I'm not going to deny him. So Jesus finishes his sermon about love and says farewell to his disciples, and here come the soldiers and they take him away. And what's the first thing that Peter does? Do you remember? Pulls out his sword, whacks a guy's ear off. He's going to be the hero, right? He's defending Jesus. He's going to prove that he is not going to deny him. And imagine how baffled he is when Jesus says, Peter, put down your sword. That's not the way. So imagine Peter thought he was going to defend Jesus, and Jesus ends up bailing him out. I mean, if Jesus hadn't said that, they're all going to jail, right? So we come to this scene now of Peter's 3 denials, and I have some questions again. First of all, where are all the other disciples? They're not in the story. They've disappeared. Are they packing to leave town? Are they hiding? Are they plotting a revolution? What are they up to? Peter seems to be kind of out there on his own. He seems to be trying to get into the courts. He wants to see what's going on and what's happening now to Jesus. I don't know what his plan is, but he's certainly not a coward. He's taking great risks to do this. Is he looking to break Jesus free? Does he think that maybe he has Andrew with a fast horse out in the alley and they're going to make a run for it if they get the chance? Or is he a man without a plan? Just going out there, being Peter, trying to see what happens next. So we come to the first denial, and it seems like Peter's coming to the gate to enter the court. He's finally found a way to get inside, and the woman at the gate says to him, "You're not one of his disciples, are you?" Now, that's kind of a strange way to ask the question, right? It's kind of backwards. And if we were to read it in Greek, it'd be really clear that she expects the answer to be no, that he's not one. But she has to ask the question because she's the gatekeeper. It's kind of like, when you go to the airport and they say, "Are you carrying any explosives?" Well, you're not going to answer that question, yes, or, "Oh, I'm sorry, I have 3 sticks of dynamite. Can I check those?" Right? So she's expecting the answer of no. And I don't think Peter's lying here because he's afraid. He's lying because he's trying to get inside. If he's truthful, he's not going to get anywhere near Jesus. Second denial is very similar. Peter's trying to stay incognito here. He's trying to blend in. He goes over to a fire. He's warming his hands. There's soldiers around. This is very dangerous for him, right? He's like a super spy at this point. Same question comes to him. You're not one of his disciples, are you? Again, expecting the answer of no. And Peter says, "Hey, are you profiling me just because I'm from Galilee? No, I'm not one of his disciples." And at this point, maybe Peter's still okay with his deception because he's on a mission. Okay, so it gets more direct with the third denial. Now it's a servant of the high priest. He looks at Peter and says, Didn't I see you in the olive grove with Jesus? And the Greek shifts there and expects the answer of the question to be yes. This is more of an accusation. This is saying, you're the guy, even though it's in the form of a question. Peter stays undercover. He says no for a third time. Notice Peter's getting away with it, right? Nobody discovers him. Nobody finally says, oh, you are really one of his disciples, and makes him leave. He's getting away with it. But then that darn rooster crows. No one knows about Peter's denial but Peter, right? No one caught him. No one witnessed him saying these words. He could have kept all of this to himself. No one would know the story. He could have seen Andrew the next day, and Andrew could have said, Peter, what happened? Did you end up denying Jesus 3 times? And he could have said again, no, not me. Me? Are you kidding? So this is where I start to differ from the traditional interpretation, because I don't think Peter's denial is a lack of courage. It's not a lack of faith. Peter had loads of courage. He had tons of faith. What he lacks is integrity. When the cock crowed, what did he think? I don't think he thought, oh, I'm such a coward. But I think he thought how easy it is to lie. How easy it is to get in the wrong space, to bend the truth, to be dishonest, even in the pursuit of a holy purpose, and you end up being someone that you really didn't want to be. I don't think Peter was just lying to his inquisitors. He was lying to himself. And when he hears that crowing, now he has to tell himself the truth. Maybe he realized he wasn't really trying to defend Jesus. He was trying to prove his courage. Was he rescuing Jesus? Or was he doing exactly what Jesus told him not to do? And I think this is so important because most of the evil that is done in the name of religion starts out with little lies to the self. We think, I'm on the side of good, and I'm against the evil. The other side is so evil that I am justified. The ends justify the means. And the small denials get larger and grander, and you don't see the truth until all the integrity is gone. Jesus never asked Peter to defend him by the sword. Nor are we asked to defend our faith with violence, to overlook injustice because we think we're defending Jesus, to engage in unholy alliances, bending the truth to serve our own purposes. Jesus told us the only way to defend the faith is to lead with love. Love, that wondrous thing that is also so challenging, so complicated. It won't always make us a hero, but it will make us whole. Thanks be to God for complicated love. May we live with as much integrity as we can muster. Amen.